we are looking ahead to the Super Bowl this weekend in Tampa. Mike Carlson, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks. So this is an unbelievably exciting Super Bowl, even just from the quarterback standpoint. Do you think, let's just throw this out here first of all, that this could be the best or at least most exciting quarterback matchup we've ever seen in the Super Bowl?
Oh, that covers an awful lot of ground. But it may not be the best in the way it turns out, but it's certainly the best story for a long time, and the biggest contrast that we've seen in quite a while. In that you have Tom Brady, who just by getting to the Super Bowl with a new team at the age of 43 has probably cemented his greatest of all time ranking, at least for about 3 more days. And then Patrick Mahomes, who is obviously the kind of like greatest of all time in waiting, if he can, put together a career long enough to sort of justify that position. And it's a contrast in styles too, because Brady is your traditional drop back quarterback, stay in the pocket, run everything from there. And Mahomes is, more on the scale of the mobile quarterback, who can play out of the pocket, who can run, and is a threat to run. And unlike, or sort of like very few quarterbacks in the NFL history, the most obvious of whom is Aaron Rodgers, is able to make tremendous throws without being set to throw. He can throw off the back foot. He can throw while he's moving. He can throw with just his wrist while he's in the grasp of a defender. And that changes the whole complexion of the game in one sense, because Mahomes is one of those guys where you can do everything right in terms of defense, and he can still beat you by simply making, an amazing individual play.
The GOAT versus the GOAT in weight is an interesting one. I've seen it described as if you had Michael Jordan and LeBron James playing against one another for one game. Is that what we're talking about here? Is that how you see it?
It's a pretty good comparison in some ways, because what people would point to is LeBron being bigger, stronger, sort of like the more perfect basketball player, but Michael Jordan having that innate ability to win and make his team into winners. But this is kind of like if Michael Jordan had signed with the Washington Wizards and then taken them to the NBA championship. And then the argument would be different. Basketball's a strange thing. LeBron can go to Miami and bring in 2 other all-stars to help him out. He can go to Los Angeles and they bring in Anthony Davis. They bring in other players. The analogy is not perfect, but it's a good one.
The legacy then that comes with this, and you don't want to be talking about that too early in a guy's career, but it does feel that the narrative that will be used to describe Patrick Mahomes if he wins this weekend will be he got the job done against Tom Brady, who had a good season. But if he loses this weekend, there'll probably be more of a significant mark against him in case he doesn't get another opportunity to beat Brady in a Super Bowl. That will be what the Brady GOAT believers will constantly say for the duration of Mahomes' career.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big guy on quarterback wins as a hugely meaningful statistic, and I think the idea of just getting to the Super Bowl is probably satisfaction enough. Peyton Manning gets a lot of credit, for example, for winning his second Super Bowl when he went to Denver, but he had a horrible year that year. It was Denver's defense that basically got them there and won the game, whereas the year before he had a very good year with Denver, but they couldn't make it to the Super Bowl. And, I think we give quarterbacks all the credit when they win games. We sometimes make them take all the blame when they lose games, but there is no sport that is more of a team sport than football. And yes, the quarterback is, with the arguable exception of the goaltender in ice hockey, the most important individual person in a team sport, just by definition. But, I think Mahomes, if he wins the game, he will have done what Brady did at the beginning of his career, which is win 2 Super Bowls in his first 3 seasons as a starter. If he doesn't, he'll be back for more. That team is at least for a year or two, is going to be set with a lot of talent, a good coach, a good set of coaches, and we will not have seen the last of Mahomes. The interesting thing to me is if Brady wins, does he retire? Does he have anything more to do except play because he loves playing, or loves promoting TB12? I don't know which, but if it were me, I would probably retire at that point. But, the word seems to be that Brady does want to keep playing for another couple of seasons.
Yeah, like he's been talking this week and was asked about could he play on beyond 45. And he said, definitely, I'd consider that. It's a physical sport. Just the perspective I have on it is that you never know when the moment is, just because it's a contact sport. There's a lot of training that goes into it, and there has to be 100% commitment from myself to keep doing it. I don't think the commitment is going to be an issue.
That's absolutely true. That's the way I feel about commentating.
What's the peak age for a commentator?
I don't know, but I'm getting there. When I reach it, I'll let you know. I think if Tom Brady decides to take up place kicking like George Blanda did and played until he was 48, then we're all in trouble.
Yeah, like this is remarkable, though. I know a lot of questions are thrown out, and there's a lot of exposure to the main players going into a Super Bowl. But even to be considering this idea of going beyond the age of 45 on a week like this it kind of speaks about the mindset of Brady.
Yeah, I think so. And, someone made a really good point during all the talking about this week, of the relationship between him and Belichick. And what you had was a guy who came in wanting to learn and willing to learn and able to learn, someone who lived and breathed football and loved the detail you go into. And he was put with a coach who had basically been breaking down game film since he was 8 years old, and doing it with his father. And so, between the two of them, and we've seen it in documentaries about various Patriots games, between the two of them, they just seem to love the whole idea of looking at game film, discovering what another team's vulnerabilities were, and then trying to take advantage of them. And I think Brady brings that with him, brought it with him to the new team, where then he was presented with a great supporting cast of offensive players, which they went out and got more for him as the season started, and a coach who himself is a really good offensive coach, with a different kind of philosophy, offensively. And I think what you saw with Tampa to an extent was those two people, at Bruce Arians and Brady, getting their acts together as the season went on until they reached a kind of accommodation where they could get a lot of the deep kind of throwing that Arians likes to do in an offense, combined with Brady's ability to read defenses to get rid of the ball quickly, in positions where the receiver can get yards after the catch, be in a good position. And I'd argue too that that's something that Patrick Mahomes does almost instinctively is the wrong word, because it would imply that he's not studying and knowing what defenses are doing, but he has the ability to make those kind of passes that get the best out of his receivers, knowing where they are going to be as opposed to where they are. And that's the real sign. I think the most important part of quarterbacking is being able to do that, as opposed to having, say, a monstrous arm that can throw the ball 60 yards on a line drive.
Mike, can we read anything going back to week 12 of the season when these two teams met? It's just over 2 months ago now at this point, but Tampa Bay found themselves in an awkward position early on in the game. Kansas runs 17-0 up. Looks like it might be a complete blowout. Then Brady and the Bucs have a really good second half. They come back and finish up within 3 points. Is there anything we can read back into that last week in November?
Not a whole lot, because I think the Bucs are playing better now than they were there. But one of the reasons I think is close, that the spread, for example, reflects the idea that the game is close, is that if either of these teams go way ahead, they're both good at coming back. I mean, we saw the Chiefs last year down 24-0 in the first half and go in at halftime up 28-24 against Houston. And as you say, we saw Brady come back and bring the team back in the second half. Super Bowls can always be decided by, like any game, by one or two big turnovers that give it a lead. But I think that right now, the Bucs are probably playing at their optimum, and their defense is probably better than it was. And to me, although we talk about Brady and Mahomes, which is obviously the great story here. The real battle in this game is going to be defensive coordinators, and Steve Spagnuolo famously beat Brady in 2007 with the Giants with a pass rush game plan that involved shutting the middle of the pocket off to him, because Brady's first reaction to rush is always to step forward. His tackles have been taught in New England, and I think in Tampa too, push the rush, the outside, and Brady comes forward in the pocket and gets himself the extra second to throw. And Todd Bowles is a really good defensive coordinator, going back to his days in Arizona with Bruce Arians, and I think he's come up with a couple of really good defensive performances that have made Brady's life easy. What worries me a bit about the Bucs in this game was their second half against Green Bay, where Brady threw 3 interceptions, primarily on one on a iffy throw, one on a bad throw, and one under a lot of pressure where he probably just shouldn't have thrown at all. That will be something the Chiefs will have noticed, obviously. But in the first half, it was Bucs playing really well, and the Bucs defense through the whole game had Aaron Rodgers on the back foot and not knowing what to do. It'll be a little bit harder against Mahomes, but I make that Mahomes-Rodgers comparison a lot, and I think the fact that Kansas City has backups at both tackle spots right now, and that the strength of the rush for Tampa is obviously the 2 defensive ends, is something that Tampa will be able to take advantage of.
Understandably, we've spoken quite a bit about the quarterback battle, and that's going to be the narrative going into this weekend. But when it comes to the running game, how impressed have you been by Leonard Fournette in this playoff series? I think he's been really good in the 2 wins so far they've had.
Yeah, it's funny because his biggest play was the touchdown against Green Bay, probably. He runs into the line, there's a little log jam, and he spins out of it, goes outside. That's what he does really well. In Jacksonville, Fournette was always miscast as a guy who is going to take the ball up the middle and then break big plays. What he likes to do is bounce the play outside, bounce it where it's not supposed to go. And his problem in Jacksonville was he tried to do it all the time because he got frustrated with running for 2 or 3 yards up the middle. I worried as well that he started dropping passes in that game because he's basically a good receiver out of the backfield, and so is Ronald Jones, and basically so are all of the Chiefs backs. And I think both teams are going to be looking to that as an alternative to rushing. The rush from the Bucs coming from the ends means that if you can get the ball past them, if you can use a receiver to get a cornerback downfield, there's a big opening there for a back coming out of the backfield. And Tampa relies on they have 2 excellent inside linebackers in Levante David and Devin White, who are basically, White is a clone of David. They're both really fast and can cover outside. That's what they'll be depending on. The Chiefs likewise love to use swing passes, wheel routes, Texas routes, where the back goes out of the backfield and goes downfield. And I think we'll probably see quite a bit of that. And in terms of Fournette making the difference, I would not be surprised to see Tampa come out and try to run the ball early. And see if they can establish the run against Kansas City, kind of keep the middle of their line off balance a bit, stop Chris Jones and maybe Frank Clark on passing downs from coming at them so speedily. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the other opposite from Kansas City, where they actually try out a lot of things on the first 10 or, classic kind of Bill Walsh, West Coast offense kind of thing, where they go out with the plays they want to run early just to see how the defense is going to react to them. And so a mix of running and passing. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But, I'm sure there's a whole lot of bluff and double bluff going to be happening in the next 3 days. The more I think about the game, the harder it gets to call.
Mike, in terms of the uniqueness of this too, I know it's going to be a limited crowd who go in, and quite a few frontline health officials are going to be given tickets, which is lovely to see. But just the uniqueness of Tampa Bay having a home field Super Bowl. This doesn't happen. Usually the team who get announced as the venue tend to lose before they get to the final itself. The uniqueness of having home field advantage, what does that do for Tampa Bay this weekend?
Well, the funny part is it probably won't do as much as it should do. And in the end, this becomes a lot like a regular season game because the Tampa players are living at home. They're not isolated in a hotel. And because there's not the media scrum that there usually is, the Chiefs will fly in during the week instead of being there, for the whole week in a hotel. So it becomes much more like a regular season game. I don't know exactly how the ticket allocation breaks down in terms of home field fans, visiting fans. There won't be very many, I think, of either. As an absolute number, and how much noise they'll make, I don't know. So we've had the situation twice where teams have played in their own city or in their own area. The Rams played once in the Rose Bowl, and the 49ers played at Stanford. But that was a different thing, again, because of the non-COVID, the crowd was a little bit different. Super Bowl ticket allocations are always different anyway than what the stadium would be. And I noticed the NFL has said the Bucs aren't going to be able to use their cannons, the cannon that they fire when they score, so that, to make it less like a Bucs home game. To me, the fascinating thing, the Bucs have a player called Dion Buck Cannon playing on their team, who played for Arians and Bowles in Arizona, and he must be desperately disappointed.
If there's no cannons, I simply do not want to watch it, Mike. It's a waste of everybody's time.
Might as well look for Pro Bowling Tour.
Call this for us, Mike.
Right now, it's Wednesday now. I'm still on Tampa. I was Monday when I thought about it. I'm looking at the schedule, and that starts to worry me because Tampa's had trouble with good teams up until the playoffs. But I think they're on a run. I think I'm still with Tampa.
Right. Okay. So that is going to be one hell of a storyline if Tom Brady manages to get over the line. Enjoy it, Mike. I know you're watching it from London, but hopefully it's not too negative an experience. I'm sure it'll be great. And we can watch it on BBC, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm watching it with OC and Jason and Chappers, and so that's never a negative experience.
No, that'll make up for not being there for sure. Enjoy it, Mike. Chat to you next week.
Thanks, mate. Bye.
Mike Carlson there on the line, looking ahead to the Super Bowl. It should be an absolute cracker. Just a reminder as well that we've got our Super Bowl preview show coming up this Friday at 12 o'clock across the OTB channels. That's at 12 o'clock midday. It's all with thanks to Now TV. Catch the Super Bowl game and preview shows this weekend with a Now TV Sky Sports Pass.